Hi, my name is Rushva, and I made sustainability my default choice in the year 2014. As a heart mafioso, my vision for 2030 is to see the dream of the active green consumer become a reality. That is where we as citizens are driving the change that we want to see for a self-sustaining, sustainable, and more inclusive planet. As global temperatures continue to rise due to the actions of humans, it is clear that we have a very short window to rectify and prevent us from reaching a point of no return. While governments and businesses are doing their part in reducing greenhouse gas emissions, it is eventually our choices as individuals that will determine our fate. Our choices in what we eat, what we buy, how we live, how we transport ourselves, and who we vote for to be in charge. Every consumer trend report you will see today will tell you how the green consumer is already a reality. More than 80% of consumers today want to go green. And about the same number say that they care about climate change. Unfortunately, though, this is not reflecting in the actions they take because only about 27% of the consumers in India today are making green purchase choices. Ultimately, the dream is to see this percentage rise up to the eventual goal of 100%. But but in order for that to happen, we must allow for us to help those who are willing to find a way and to show those who are unwilling that there is a simple and clear path ahead. Now, how many times have you heard this though? How many times have we spoken about climate change or the impact that it has on our planet or the problems that it poses? We already know the science behind it. We already know the solutions that we need to mitigate it. Why then are we failing to act? Simply, I think that there is a knowledge gap that exists between those who understand these terms around climate and those who don't. The interconnectedness of behavioral habitual patterns that are entangled in unnecessary scientific terminology is rather distancing for everybody who's at the ground reality. So while most of us here who are working too hard, even sometimes I may add, in the sustainability space, understand and resonate with the terms and narratives being used, the average citizen out there, the Aam Aadmi, does not only not understand these terms, but is not even able to process them. A recent study of over 2 million people conducted by the Potential Energy Coalition found that more than 65% of people, terms like carbon emissions and net zero were incomprehensible. If you are here, you are most likely part of that balanced 35%. And if there is one thing you walk away from today, it is that you need to share this information privilege and use your privilege far and wide, probably as loud as possible. But don't shout. That's not what I'm asking you to do. I'm not asking you to make large public statements, but to simply start talking to people in your circle, talking to your friends, talking to your families, and helping them understand the science and the knowledge that you have about climate change, and also help them understand the problems that they're seeing around their homes and immediate surroundings and what they can do to improve. It is clear that most people care about climate change, but the lack of clarity that exists behind understanding the concepts is what leads to apathy. They think that this is not really their problem to fix. Apathy does not drive action. And we need to break this bubble of those who know versus those who don't, because it is indeed true that the green conscious consumer is here. They're just not active yet, and we need to activate them. Now, all of this being said, is much easier to say than to do. Convincing your family and those close to you about making changes in their lives is going to be the toughest battle you fight as a climate change advocate. Take it from me. I've struggled. It is hard because people around can't really see the impact that their choices are making. This because it's mostly like an abstract idea, climate change, which doesn't seem to pose an immediate threat to survival, or so one thinks. We worry about everyday issues like natural calamities, like locust infestation, like air pollution, without really understanding that all of these are linked to climate change. Over the last 6 years, I have been advocating for better choices to everyone I meet, I know, and I love. This helps them understand that yes, climate change exists. Yes, climate change is a very complex issue, but this narrative of complexity that makes you think that this is somebody else's problem or that this is something that you can worry about later is wrong. We need to personalize this issue. Go to where your audience is and give them a wake up call. Because the climate clock estimates that we have about 7 years to act, and it is our actions that will determine whether we can do this in time. You think here, which is often a response that you will also get when you're talking to people, is that, oh, it doesn't matter if I do something, the system's really messed up, so why bother? Bother because individual actions make a difference. The way to begin really is to start small, to take small steps. And these small steps eventually lead to big action. When I started my sustainability journey with my friends and families, I started with three things: what we eat, what we buy, and where we live, or how we live. So, number one, what we eat. I found that a lot changes when you start caring about what you consume. In this case, like physically, it is hard for people to get motivated about changing eating habits towards which they'll see results like 10 years from now. But when you look at eating better in terms of more immediate payoff benefits like weight loss or improved health or energy, it becomes a much easier choice to make. Let me give you an example. One of my cousins recently got pregnant. She was one of those, oh, I'll worry about climate change later mindset. But as soon as she found out that she was pregnant, she started caring about what she's consuming. She stopped buying processed foods. She stopped eating red meat. She switched to only eating organic fruits and vegetables because the chemicals in the food would otherwise harm the baby. Now, if these chemicals and processed foods are not okay to eat while you're pregnant, how is it okay to eat when you are not? The chemicals are not only harming your body, but also harming the planet. So, what happens if we all start behaving like pregnant women and make better choices for ourselves? The more people that make better choices, the more there is a need and demand for better products. And then producers and manufacturers will have to start making these better choices as a default in order to supply to you. This is simple economics. Second, what we buy. Now, I know that businesses and companies have all been reading the same consumer trend reports that I've been talking to you about. They know that the green consumer exists, or at least potentially exists. And many of them are creating products and services that will resonate with this green consumer. You are this green consumer. So start choosing to support companies that support the planet. There are many brands out there who are rising to the challenge posed by climate change, reimagining their supply chains, ensuring their packaging is 100% biodegradable, building practices that give back to the communities in which they operate. And as a green consumer, it is our choice on what brands we choose to support because the alternatives for everything that you can think of already exist. So choose sustainable, choose climate positive, choose local. If your favorite brands are not producing sustainability, demand that they do. Because believe me, I have been in enough company boardrooms to know that most of them already have sustainable alternatives in place. Just recently, Gucci launched Off the Grid, a capsule collection made entirely out of recycled materials. Other brands like Nike, Adidas, and all are making luxury label lines. It is really up to us, the consumer, to help companies see that we will support the choices that are sustainable, and therefore encourage them to do more for the planet. What we want is what we will get. So if we stop asking for wrong things, we will get the right things. The third point on how we live. On average, the more money you have, the bigger your carbon footprint is going to be. So you can choose to make better choices on how you live, on how much water and electricity you use or waste, and even how you build your homes. Let me give you a really small example in this. Now, I think we are all aware and understand that there is a water crisis looming. The next big wars will be fought on water. So, how many of us are then taking the steps that we need to in our homes to change our behaviors and reduce how much water we waste? I'll tell you, honestly, not that many. When I started this at my home, it was very hard for me to convince my family to change their behaviors. So instead of doing that, I just changed the fittings. My simple solution was to install aerator nozzles on all the taps and shower heads in our home. Now, these aerators essentially act as a sieve that separates a single flow of water into tiny little streams and introduce air into the water flow. As a result, the water pressure is maintained. So most people don't really understand or notice the difference that is coming out of the aerator faucet. In reality, though, it's about 90% less water. Therefore, you benefit from water efficiency. In the first year that we installed this without any significant change in my behavior, on my family's behavior part, we saved about 900 liters of water every month, um, which is to me incredible. It showed me that simple, conscious choices can fix a potentially mammoth problem. All in all, I think the technology for sustainable alternatives that allows us to make this transition towards a more carbon positive world already exists. It is constantly being redefined by groundbreaking ingenuity every day. We are producing leather alternatives from pineapples and mushrooms. We are producing diesel from the waste that we generate in our cities. We are able to produce energy from the sun and grow vegetables at home without using any soil. Why then are we still choosing the wrong choices? Why then are we still choosing palm oil, still choosing fast fashion, still relying too much on fossil fuels and not even thinking about it? We are still failing to take the steps we need to save water and save our planet's natural resources. Why are we then continuing to sit silently as our leaders announce the formation of no new coal-fired power stations? Working as a sustainability warrior now for more than half a decade, what I have learned is that at an individual level, we can only create change with a series of positive actions that lead to a larger butterfly effect. It is utopian to believe that the world will magically wake up one day and collectively know what they need to do. We have to unlearn the habits that we've been living with. And we must update ourselves on newer options and hold ourselves and those we choose for public office accountable to take action. All of this is easier said than done. The first few steps are always the hardest to take. Remember, it takes 21 days to make a new habit. So let's build some new habits today. Build new habits of better choices. What I urge you to do is to remember that you already know better and that you do care. So make your voices heard and help somebody take their first few steps in becoming an active green consumer. A consumer that chooses options that are good for you and good for planet. Because this time around, the more we help others succeed, the more we succeed together.